For Hindi videos, you can now subscribe to my personal channel Amit Chhangani. For over 13 years, Motoroids has been delivering in-depth videos covering every single detail about products minus any unnecessary nonsense or drama. You can promote quality content by subscribing to Motoroids, adding Motoroids in your searches and by sharing our content with your like-minded friends. हिंदी बोलने वाले मेरे प्यारे दोस्तों, हिंदी वीडियोस के लिए अब आप मुझे मेरे पर्सनल चैनल अमित छंगानी पे फॉलो कर सकते हैं. लिंक इन डिस्क्रिप्शन. तो चलिए मिलते हैं वहां. Hey guys, welcome to Motoroids. My name is Amit and this, as you would probably know, is the Suzuki Katana, the 2022 version. And this motorcycle is a legend of sorts. It was the template that a majority of the Japanese motorcycling companies followed for performance and design. So in the early 80s, this motorcycle made a mark on the global motorcycling scene with its futuristic design. Target Design from Germany designed this motorcycle. And in the age of Star Wars, in silver color, it looked like it came out from a spaceship. And not just that, the performance also was something that no other motorcycle could compete with. The predecessor of this motorcycle in its time was the fastest production motorcycle in the world. Now, for 2019, this motorcycle came back in again after its production stopped in 2006. Until that time, anyway, it was produced as a limited production model. But in 2019, it was reimagined and Suzuki did a fantastic job of recreating a legend. Now, if you look at its design and you look at the motorcycle from the early 80s, there's a striking resemblance without any of those rough edges from the 80s and 90s. This motorcycle has been modified to suit today's day and age in a beautiful manner while still keeping the lines of the original. Now, the idea there was to keep the seat and the tank panels, everything very blended in. And as you'd see, the seat, just like the original, is still blended in. The tail is short. The headlight has a very similar styling as compared to the original. And even this half fairing is strikingly similar. Yet this motorcycle looks very modern. Now, having said that, in isolation, would this motorcycle look extremely beautiful or desirable in today's day and age? I wouldn't be very sure because the tastes of today's generation are different. But as something that is a nod to the original, it does look really beautiful and very timeless. Now, today I'm going to tell you 10 reasons why you should buy this motorcycle and 5 why you should not. But before that, we need to know what this motorcycle is all about in its modern avatar. And as compared to the previous 2019 version, which didn't make it to India, what were the changes that were made to this motorcycle? Now, to start off with the specs, this is an inline 4,000cc motorcycle, 999cc to be precise, 152 PS, 11,000 RPM, which is 1,000 RPM more than its 2019 version. This is a BS6 compliant version, 2019 version was not. The peak torque here is 106 Newton meters. Now, to put things in perspective, the Kawasaki Ninja 1000 SX produces 142 PS, which is 10 PS less, but the BMW S1000R produces 165 PS, which is 13 PS more, but the BMW is a lot more expensive too. The weight here is 217 kgs, which is par for the course. In fact, it's one of the lighter ones. The ground clearance is 140 mm, and you'd be surprised how well this motorcycle takes in its stride. Really big bumps even with that low ground clearance. It's really amazing. Now, the saddle height is 825 mm, and you'd like to think that it's quite high, but the seat really tapers towards the tank and it won't be too much of a problem if you're 5 feet 7 or 8 or taller. And as you can see, myself being 5 feet 10, I can easily dig my heels onto the ground with a gentle bend at the knees. The saddle height, although high, is not prohibitive for short riders. In fact, if you compare it with the Kawasaki Ninja or the BMW S1000R, both of these motorcycles have a taller seat height as compared to this. In terms of performance as well, this motorcycle is an absolute scorcher. And it'll do its 0 to 100 in less than 2.7 seconds and will go all the way to its top speed of almost 250 kilometers per hour. Now, for 2022, this motorcycle gets 2 more traction control modes, which is in addition to the 3 which were already there. So you have a total of 5 plus 1, which is the traction control off mode. So 5 modes plus 1, which is off. You get new colors, you get styling enhancements, of course, better emission norms. Now, the wheels also were black earlier, now they are color coordinated. This suspension coil that you see here is also now painted in grey as opposed to the earlier red. Part of the seat is now a dark tone as opposed to an entirely grey tone earlier. Now there are 3 riding modes, A, B, C, and you'd want to think that that's just A, B, C, but that's not the case. It's active, basic and comfort. So active is the sharpest and the comfort is the bluntest for riding in conditions like rain, and of course basic is for your everyday riding in city or on the highway. For 2022, this motorcycle also gets ride by wire throttle, an easy start system which requires you to just press the starter once and the engine will come to life. New cam profiles, new valve springs. It also now gets a more balanced, more rounded performance where the power curve is now more linear and the torque curve is now flatter, so the performance comes in a more linear fashion. Now the torque has gone down as compared to the previous version, but there is more torque available at lower RPMs, which means that the tractability has increased. And when I talk about tractability, I'll come to that later again. This motorcycle has to be one of the best out there. It comes with Suzuki's low RPM assist, which suppresses engine stalls at lower engine speeds and higher gears, and it works in conjunction with Suzuki's clutch assist system or the slipper clutch and boosts the RPM a little bit if the engine is about to stall. So this really works very well, especially in our chock-a-block heavy traffic conditions. Other changes include rubber mounts inside the handlebar to cut off vibrations even better, and now this instrument console has this Suzuki Katana logo instead of the Suzuki logo that was there earlier. With all of that out of the way, now I'm ready to let you know what are the 10 reasons why you should be buying this motorcycle, and let's get going with that. The most important reason is the legacy of this motorcycle. This is one of the most important Japanese motorcycle brand names, and when you buy this motorcycle, you buy nostalgia, especially if you're an 80s kid. You buy a part of the history, and of course you buy a motorcycle which encapsulates the very essence of performance motorcycle, which probably had its roots in the early 80s. And in that sense, this is an offspring of probably one of the most important motorcycles in the history of motorcycling itself. Also, while the design, probably not to everyone's taste in today's day and age, is something which is carried out masterfully if you really connect the dots and trace back its roots, and in that sense it's a classical design, and for someone who has a taste for motorcycles is really going to appreciate this motorcycle and you if he spots you aboard this. The second reason why you should be buying this motorcycle is its impeccable performance, and by performance I mean all-round performance. This engine is one of the most masterful engines you'll come across anywhere, especially for our conditions, and the performance here is stonking. It does its 0 to 100 in less than 2.7 seconds, as I mentioned, and the top speed is close to 250 kilometers per hour. But more importantly, it's how that power is delivered. It's extremely linear, very tractable. I'm going to come to that again. And just the way it adapts itself to whatever you want to throw at it, be it low speed riding in chock-a-block driving conditions or barreling down a straight around the corners, this engine is ready for everything. And since it's an inline 4, the exhaust note is also quite beautiful. Let's have a listen. The engine inhibitor just came in play as I put the side stand on, and the performance, the all-round versatile performance of this motorcycle is something that you should be buying it for. Number 3, and a very important aspect for our conditions, is tractability. This is one of the most tractable motorcycles that I have ridden, especially in the superbike category. And despite being a high performance, high revving engine, this produces its peak power at 11,000 RPM, and yet it idles at about 1000 RPM and will trundle along at less than 2000 RPM, which is mind-boggling, to be honest. Most of such motorcycles are going to stall if you're going to be riding them in the top gear at anywhere below 50 kilometers per hour. But this motorcycle with 2 up, mind you, I tested it with 2 up at 30 kilometers per hour. Of course, there was some knocking happening, but this would pull along from 30 kilometers per hour in 6th gear, and that really says something. The tractability on this motorcycle and the low RPM assist really works. And if you want a motorcycle that you can use on a day-to-day basis in chock-a-block conditions as well, this motorcycle really stands out. The 4th reason, and another mind-boggling one, is the way this motorcycle manages its heat. And I drove in peak traffic hours today, and there was a lot of traffic. There were red lights and there was a lot of stop-start traffic along the way. I barreled down the highway and carved my way across some ghats, and not once did I feel any signs of heat emanating from this engine. And that's astounding, because most of the superbikes that I've ridden, especially the ones which are primarily European, really emanate a lot of heat, to the point that you sometimes really have to stop the motorcycle and get off just to make sure that your calves are not roasted. And in that sense, this is one of the coolest running motorcycles I have come across, which really is commendable. Number 5, again, in our conditions, you require a motorcycle that can take on the rough with the smooth, and in that sense the suspension here, of course, at the rear it can be adjusted for preload as well as rebound. Up front also you have adjustment, so you of course can adjust it, but even so some motorcycles cannot quite cope with our punishing roads, and in that sense this motorcycle really shines. Not just is the suspension very compliant, whether you're riding 1 up or 2 up, it takes on bad roads, bad bumps, potholes really well in its stride. I went over some really vicious speed breakers today, the types where cars with even a slightly long wheelbase are going to scrape their belly, and this motorcycle, even with 2 up, mind you, again, managed to go over them without a hiccup. So it's really bewildering how even with a low ground clearance of 140 mm, this motorcycle manages to go over bad bumps so well, and the suspension is so beautifully sorted. Of course, adjustability is there like a lot of other motorcycles, but the basic suspension setup is fantastic for our conditions at low speeds, medium speeds, around potholes, or in a straight line as you shoot towards the horizon. Number 6. Now, this is not the lightest motorcycle, but again, this is not the most expensive also, and if you compare it with its peers, it's reasonably light at about 217 kgs. This is a reasonably light motorcycle, and for someone who might get intimidated by a big motorcycle, this comes across as a motorcycle which is reasonably accessible. When you are astride, it feels like a motorcycle which is probably no bigger than a Bajaj Dominar 400, yet packs so much power. So it's very manageable, very light, very nimble, and very easy to maneuver as well. It won't intimidate you, won't take up too much space, and is a lean, mean fighting machine. So if you're into that kind of a thing, this motorcycle should appeal to you. The 7th reason why you should be buying this is that this comes with a reasonably good electronic suite to have you covered in case things go south. So you have a 5-stage traction control where there's the off mode also, so you can turn the traction control completely off if you're feeling too adventurous. But you also have 3 riding modes, so you have A, B and C, so that really is a reasonably generous electronic safety net, and this motorcycle has you covered even if you're riding in brainy conditions or through the city. So while you are in A, which is the active mode, the throttle response is really sharp. When you take off from a standstill, the motorcycle really wants to lunge forward. The throttle response is really sharp. When you go to B, it moderates, and in the C mode, it really becomes very docile. So the motorcycle has the capability to adapt itself to your riding conditions or style. Also, the traction control is 5-stage, so you can either turn it completely off if you're feeling adventurous, or you can choose the level that you want it to come in at. Typically, traction control has a habit of cutting in and interfering with the enthusiastic or skilled rider, but you have to live with that if you want to be safe. But having these many levels really helps. The 8th reason why you should be buying this motorcycle is that while the suspension by itself is fantastic, it also comes with great adjustability, and up front you have a fully adjustable suspension, and at the rear you have a preload as well as rebound damping adjustment. So that really helps you tune the motorcycle to your liking, and this suspension comes from Kayaba, so it is a high quality unit, and along with its fantastic basic setup, the fine tuning that it allows you to do should really encourage you to buy it. Another great reason to buy this motorcycle is this bi-directional quick shifter that has been introduced on the 2022 version, and it's one of the nicest, slickest, smoothest shifting quick shifters that I have ever come across. Never feels too notchy, and you can use it at any speed, and one of the nicest units out there, and this definitely counts as one of the reasons why you should be buying this motorcycle. The one reason why a lot of Indian buyers should be buying this motorcycle is that unlike a lot of other motorcycles within this segment, the riding stance here is not too committed. Sure, the handlebar is flat and is a little too far away. However, for those who don't want too committed a stance, this motorcycle still offers a reasonably upright riding position, and the rear foot pegs are also not too rear set. So if you want a motorcycle which is not too committed, not too sporty, and can be used on a day-to-day basis, it really offers a very nice stance. So those were all the reasons why you should be buying this legendary motorcycle, but there are quite a few negatives as well, and it's very important that I list them out to you. I'll list out the 5 most important things why you should not be buying this motorcycle, and I'll also talk about a few other niggles that plague this motorcycle. Let's get started. Now, the first reason why you should probably not be buying this motorcycle is that it misses out on some electronics which it should have had, and those include cornering ABS and cornering traction control, which is available in motorcycles such as the Ninja 1000 SX. And while that's not absolutely necessary when you are selling a motorcycle in the price range of about 15 lakh rupees or thereabouts on the road, a customer would require that, and I think that's an omission which is a rather glaring one. The second reason why you should probably not be buying this motorcycle is that the fuel tank here is pretty small. At only 12 liters, this is a pretty small fuel tank, and if you want to be going for a very long drive, this is not going to last for a long distance. And in fact, if you look at a fuel efficiency of about 15 kmpl, you'll have to fill up at less than 200 kilometers, significantly less than 200 kilometers, about 170, 160 kilometers, which is not good enough. To put things in perspective, the Ninja 1000 SX has a fuel tank of 19 liters, and that really is a huge difference. And this little fuel tank is also one of the reasons why you should probably not be buying this motorcycle. Now, the third reason that is against this motorcycle is this LCD display, and this is rather cluttered. Like, the information here is not very easily presented. This looks like it is inspired from the digital gaming consoles of the 90s. It doesn't have a very modern design, and it's not very legible also. Also, if you look at some other motorcycles from the segment, they come with a TFT display, a color display, and not just is it more modern, the information is also more legibly laid out on those instrument consoles. Like, that itself was not a reason bad enough. This system also does not come with any connectivity features like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, which makes it look bad. Another reason why you should probably be avoiding this motorcycle is that the tires on this motorcycle are not the best that we have seen. It comes loaded with these 120 front and 190 rear Dunlop Road Sport 2 tires, which are reasonably good as long as you are riding in dry conditions and not pushing the bike too hard, but they are not the best, and we probably could have had a little more thickness from the tires, especially when the motorcycle is offering so much performance. Also, this motorcycle is not very flickable in city conditions. It has an inherent tendency to resist leaning, especially when it's at low speeds. The turning radius is very, very wide, and it's not very flickable. So if you want to be maneuvering it, as in not fore and aft, but if you want to be turning it in tight spaces, this can be a bit of a problem. Also, while finding your way through the city traffic at slow speeds, this motorcycle can be a bit of a problem to handle. Finally, the price at 13.6 lakh rupees as opposed to 11 lakh rupees on the Ninja 1000 SX is about 1.6 lakh rupees more. And if you put the two motorcycles side by side, with its legacy and everything taken into consideration, the other motorcycle looks bigger. It feels like a more touring friendly motorcycle. It has a bigger rear seat. Also, it comes with a more accomplished electronic suite with cornering ABS, cornering traction control, and its instrument console also is far superior to this motorcycle. So purely in value terms, sometimes you would probably want to think that this motorcycle is slightly overpriced. A few other things that I would want to mention here is that while this size is quite athletic and feels lean for some others who want the girth, probably this size would be a deterrent to buy this motorcycle. The mirrors are quite wide, and navigating through the instrument console is very easy through the switchgear. That's very, very easy. The switchgear quality, the build quality, everything is fantastic. Suzuki motorcycles offer some of the best built motorcycles, and this one is no exception. But there is very little for the pillion rider. There is no proper grab rail either, so that can be a bit of a problem. So if you want to be riding with a pillion rider, this motorcycle is not the most well suited. I hope that I was able to answer all your questions about this beautiful machine in this review. Still, if you have any questions, any opinions, any thoughts, you can put them down in the comment section. We are always reading our comment section and we really love your inputs. So do comment, and if you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe to Motoroids, and until next time, this is your friend Amit Changani signing off. Rev hard, rev free, and ride safe.